Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to RLAfterShock, the longest-running independent podcast for everything that is Rocket League Esports in the European scene. Certainly has lasted longer than Psyonixs' stability of servers, I guess you could say here, Baguette. We're starting on the right foot, I think, today. We're starting on the right foot. It's been a really shite week. A really shite week for fucking Rocket League, man. Like, my God.
I don't know. It's a mixed bag. We've got real high highs and real low lows this week, of course. So I'm excited to talk about the highs, but the lows, I mean, we can't avoid, can we? We have to talk about them.
Yeah, and I mean, at this point, if you're listening, you probably already know what those lows are. Jesus Christ. Yeah, server outages have caused the play-ins, the league plays, and everything else to be delayed by a week from this point here. A lot of shit going down in the RLCS and RLRS camp. A bunch of news in the wake of that, though, so we get the opportunity to cover all that. And you, the fans, have saved this week's episode of the show because we were going to cancel this one because the whole structure of the show was planned around the idea of recapping the week one of the season. Obviously, week one's not happened, so we can't fucking do that. So we have a shed load of mailbag questions from you, the viewers, you, the fans, and all the news and all the regular sort of goings on here in the Rocket League scene live on RLAfterShock. Let's start with the big one, obviously. RLCS and RLRS are delayed by a week, and this is all because of server outages is what we initially thought it was. The initial reports came in that it was because of the Google outage that we had during the course of the last couple of days. We got a lot of information about Steam being down, CS:GO being down, Escape from Tarkov servers being down, a lot of things being down over the weekend. But it started out prior to all that happening, and then as it continued on, like starting out on January 31st, where the official Rocket League Twitter tweeted out that they're experiencing server issues and they're investigating. Then on NA League Play Day 1, issues caused the broadcast to be delayed to the point where the desk would like literally just filling for hours essentially. Eventually, they put the game into maintenance mode. They cancelled the first week of league play, and into Sunday they did the same thing as well. Razer Esports announced that they were delaying everything. Delaying the play-ins for the RLRS to next weekend, assuming the servers will be fixed by that point. We don't know if that's actually going to be the case. And then eventually information started coming out here. In particular, messages from Psyonixs Devin, who was, I think, posted in the official Rocket League Discord. Of course, it's in a public Discord, so this is no problem revealing this, but this screenshot says, it's not a server problem, it's a PsyNet problem. So all of the things we thought that it was all Google's fault actually turns out it was Psyonixs' fault, because a few days prior, they updated PsyNet to they put like I don't know what the specifics of the update were, but it was like something to do with a new SQL database or something.
I basically have no fucking idea. The database manages itself and how it designates tasks and all of that sort of. It's crazy. Yeah. Okay. So it says on the screenshot, moving to a new version of MySQL. So that's where the issues themselves started cropping up, and things later on came on. They kept going forward. There was a Reddit post as well about the Rocket League Esports schedule from Ian, which credit to him. Last week we were saying you got to follow suit with that statement after the open letter, and well, he's done that right here. They've made a fuck up, and he's had to come out and explain the situation. He's given us as much detail as I think is reasonable, to be honest. Talking about how week one's been postponed, the same thing with the rival series. And then after that, on the main Psyonixs, on the main Rocket League Reddit page, there was this post from Devin to follow suit, give us a little bit more information about how about 315,000 users is where shit started to hit the fan. So that's sort of what brings us up to where we're at right now. As far as my knowledge, the game is up and running today as we're recording this on February the 4th at 10 past 7 UTC. So
Yeah, and it's been a bit of a shit show. And day after day, as we've gone forward and we've kept sort of like moving, moving forward. Like the games have been coming out in into maintenance mode, just back and forth and back and forth. So where does that leave us in terms of the fucking, the state of the game at the moment? Because a lot of people, as has been visibly, the case on social media, a lot of people are just getting really frustrated here.
Yeah, and this is one of those things of. You gotta look. Trox has just said in chat perfectly. You're doing an update to a database that is God knows how big, and you don't have a backup plan. Generally, within I know within my work with pensions, having to work, finance and that, you update a database onto a test server. Essentially, this is why I put out the tweet earlier on today about this is one of the reasons why we need a PTR. In this case, a PTR wouldn't have found this problem because it was more of a maximum load issue, but it's still that case of you've got to put stages in place to reduce the issues. And here, it's just one of those ones of you can see Psyonixs just don't have the plans in step, and that's what really annoys us. But on the other side, where they're being so open about these issues, you feel sympathetic for the guys at Psyonixs right now and how, this isn't something they could have planned for. Couldn't have estimated or guessed would have come out. Yes, you can plan for it by having a quick sort of backup, or you try and do different releases on different times. I don't know. It's a little bit of an awkward problem because generally with an update of this size, you'd have to schedule it way in advance. We're talking weeks, 3-4 weeks in advance because you're putting it across multiple platforms and they've all got to be running near identical versions of that same game, so it's very hard to manage. So that's why right now they're sort of in development maintenance fixes, which is going to be fucking hell to organize with Nintendo, Microsoft, and Sony. Steam's the easy one. They can near enough go, right, we want to put this up, 30 minutes later it's up and people can download it. That's why hot fixes are so common on PC versions, but on consoles, it is a pain in the arse to put out. And so right now, I am so sympathetic for the guys at Psyonixs for fixing this. But it's it was bound to happen at some point. We knew these problems were there.
Look, right, there are times which are appropriate to go and make changes like this. 2 days prior to RLCS beginning is not one of those days. They should have waited for an off season or for the little stopgap between the last day. Yeah, they should have waited until after the World Championship, or just that stopgap between the last day of the online season and the actual World Championship themselves. But doing this 2 days prior to the RLCS kicking off, including the rival series play-ins, has not only fucked up the start of the season for the major players, but it's also completely crippled all of the community tournaments going on as well. I know that recently, Baguette mod just got a massive boost in their downloads and installations because now they found you a way where you can play outside of the main servers of Rocket League. So there are players out there that are scrimming through Baguette mod. And there are also people who are using the Baguette mod plugin to do what they intended to do and play custom game modes. But for the esports side of things, Psyonixs shit the fucking bed with this. Oh my God. It was delayed so bad, and everyone knew that this was going to go to the point of being delayed till next week because it was there. The problem was there a couple of days prior to the NA League Play day. And the thing that people seem to be missing a lot on this is the fact that Psyonixs did this, and as you say, they had no backup plan for if anything goes wrong, okay? This is something that's very basic on tournament organizers. Faceit got a lot of shit for this during the London Major, where they had a lot of internet outages, very similar actually to the stuff that was going on with the servers here with Psyonixs. And it was on them to have a backup plan. They couldn't get a backup plan in place, and they got shit for it. So I'm giving Psyonixs equal shit for this because, mate, it's a basic of a tournament organizer. Number one, to think about exactly when you're going to do big maintenance things like this. And then number two, have some sort of plan in place for if things go wrong. And clearly Psyonixs didn't have a plan because they were busy fixing it and they couldn't fix it in time. They couldn't fix it to the point where the day would have been, worth anything. So they've had to push everything back. We still don't know when the first week of league play is going to happen, whether that will come in next weekend or whether they have to do it to, the mid part of a week. We've lost a week as well. And with the tight scheduling of RLCS and the IWO, you've got so little room to breathe with this that you can't afford a catastrophic fuck up like this,
Yeah, so what we expect is probably scheduling down the line where, if I remember right, they give like a little bit of a week break between stuff like the promotion playoffs and all of that. I imagine that week break will be just eaten up by this era and it will be closed up that sort of way. But yeah, right now, Psyonixs has literally just shat the bed. And like you said, if this had happened weeks back, I can understand them not wanting to put a server update like this over the Christmas period, purely because that's when you're going to have your biggest market playing the game. But, the second week of January, just before the qualifiers, would have been acceptable. And if the qualifiers were moved about, then people wouldn't have been so harsh on it, would they? Because the qualifiers aren't on stream, they're off. You just go, sorry about this. You've got four chances. It's a little bit better.
That's the other thing as well, actually, because the play-ins were moved. A lot of teams are now going to get forced to forfeit because they were available this past weekend. They're not going to be available this coming weekend. So the ramifications of this for RL Esports as a whole is going to be pretty big. I think a lot of people are underestimating that. Like, it's not just a case of delaying the league play season a week, but there are a lot of teams that held a bit of promise that now won't be able to show that promise off in the play-in bracket.
I will say, devil's advocate to that generally the teams that are going to make play-ins this coming weekend won't get affected by this, because generally you put away the times. You're expected to play week 1 of league play this coming week, so just like I said, a devil's advocate, you would be available for it. But there could have been some teams, we know the depth in EU, as we always talk about, you get those wildcard teams that probably might have to forfeit now or play with a sub that's of lower quality and won't make it on in, but the chances are pretty low. At the end of the day, Jay, like you said, it was, I think, the biggest scare for me here, and we know this from us meant to be in the first on the Rival NA stream, where we had to stay there for about 4 hours waiting for are we still going, or is this getting called off? Where that period of time, I imagine Psyonixs were working to midnight just trying to fix this, trying to go, what the shit is going on, headless chicken scenario. And that is what scares me after, 4, coming up to 5 years of this game being out and still in situations where this can happen.
Yeah, and just to follow suit as well on what we've sort of been talking about as well, Psyonixs have decided that today is the right day to push a content update. Guys, read the room a little bit. Just read the room a little bit.
No, they probably could put some adjustments into this content update because it's all about scheduling. So if you've got that update scheduled, you can quickly go and update them on the consoles. I'm just saying, I know this for PS4. I don't know about the Xbox and the Switch, but you can just basically change that update, like change that file, as long as it's scheduling out. So there might be some improvements coming out. Around about this time, generally, we get updates put out. So let's hope.
But here's the thing, though, right? It's like you realize that as soon as they release new content, people are going to jump back on the game again, and you're going to hit the exact same problems before when we don't even know if you've been able to fix those problems in the first place. That's it's not a good look, is it? I mean, obviously, it's great that we get the new esports shop items and everything, but it's like you couldn't hold it out for at least another week, guys. Like, or you could have held it out for at least another week, is what I should be saying. Think of the optics again. Read the room for a few seconds and think about. Maybe this might not be the best idea considering our servers and our network have gone to shit,
I don't know. I'm fine with this update because it's just content items like in the esports shop. It doesn't attribute anything to the core game. And for once, I'm actually quite happy because, you'll have those esports items before league play started. This content update should have been with the one that fucked everything up last week, realistically, Jay, where you can go on and buy your, let's just say, United, whatever team decal before they actually play for the first time in league play. I didn't understand why they're putting out for the second week,
I don't know. I mean, scheduling at this point. No, I'm not even going to question it anymore. Like, Psyonixs just confused me in general. So, yeah, everything burned this week. Hopefully, we'll see it not burn next week, and hopefully, we'll see the fires be fully extinguished, and we can get on with the RLCS. Hopefully, I mean, I don't think we can survive another week on this show without any like results content to talk about. So, please, for our sake, guys. But again, great to Psyonixs. They've started to own their shit this time, which is like, finally, you can't get out of this one from a PR nightmare. Like, just get it sorted out, just tough it out and make it through. And I really hope as well, by the way, that this whole situation will prove to Psyonixs that, you can survive massive disasters. Because from my understanding is that the player base has not dropped, like obviously it's dropped a little bit, but it hasn't dropped by like a major amount to kill the game. So if you can survive the servers going out on day one and the servers completely shitting the bed for 4 or 5 days in a row here before the biggest tournament in the whole scene, it's like, let's take a few more risks from now and then. You guys have proven that you can survive the toughest of the tough. So, speaking of the toughest of the tough boy Bluey has been in the news this week. He has been speaking about his removal from FC Barcelona. For those of you who weren't aware of what happened earlier on, Scrub Killer went on stream to talk about some of the... I say talk, I mean, more of a case of just like, it's sort of like passively aggressively chat shit about people behind the scenes without saying anything about behind the scenes information. One of the things he said in particular was about why Bluey got kicked from FC Barcelona. And he said basically it was because of toxicity. Now, considering Bluey's past, I think everyone would have been able to buy that. I certainly think that we talked about that being a possibility, but I personally, I don't know about you, Bacon, but personally, when I saw Bluey getting removed from FCB, we could always see that was a bit of sort of like the problem from within the game. And Bluey kind of confirms that here, talking about his statement about removing from the from his removal from the FCB roster. He talks about, things were just not working on the team, and some people felt it might be best for me to swap out for another player. That's just esports, boys, and that's life. By the way, this fucking statement right here, this that first sentence on the second paragraph, that is the fucking right way to go about drama and rosters. Okay, do not do triple trouble, do not do Veloce, do this. Okay, respect the fact that it's just an esports move, and just move on with your fucking life, which is what Bluey's done. So credit to him. Do you know what, honestly, considering the PSG Bluey that we saw from back in the day when he was publicly chatting shit about his teammates, I think he's come a long way since that point.
Yeah, this is a very, I'm going to say, well-crafted, Tractor, you need to get ad block, buddy. Oof, look at that. But yeah, well-crafted statement put on out. And I respect it. Again, we've been there going, like, when we heard this was coming through of him getting...
Sorry, I just looked at the live stream and I see one of the sex ads from like, play this game.
Ooh,
it's
boy.
so bad. Please continue.
So anyway, so we pretty much went into that going, hopefully this is another kick up the backside to improve mentality. Now, yes, he's accepted toxicity was up for PSG. He's saying that it's not necessarily toxicity, but more of a drive difference within FCB. Like, we know when it came to Vitality, they're quite openly saying Scrub, after winning Worlds, just sort of lost that drive and thought, you're at the top of your game, you're the best of the best. You don't have to put in so much training because you're already the top. No, it doesn't work like that. And that's why, like, KDOP is continuously swapping out players. Like, if Therapy drops off, he'll drop him next season. It's just what it is, and that's the pinnacle of what sports should be like. And so here, Scrub as well, we're saying he's got to regain that fire, and going to a new team is actually the best choice for him right now. And it's quite interesting how all these moves have gone this season. But Bluey here, going down to RLRS, like we said, his biggest problem is he has to learn that team ethic, and moving to RLRS will be humbling. If he plays great this season, there's not a reason why another team might see his performance and pick him up once again, or a triple trouble move up by their own accord, So right now, Bluey, I just hope he's, being a smart kid, actually picks it up, and he's just got to learn how to communicate to teammates now, it still seems, because, I mean, he's in a team where he's got Tadpole, who should be a great mentor on the mental side of things to him, and I was about to say Ronicky, for whatever reason, Rick's Ronde has been around for ages, and so this should be a very good team for him to sort of like grow, and they're all quite open to each other, so that should be a great sight to see for this lad to grow even more, because Bluey has got so much potential to grow, and it is just the mental side of the game which needs to improve. And
he's already shown that he's like willing to grow as an individual, let alone a player. So like, you know, I think that, you know, the whole experience in FCB has been humbling for him. Just taking case in point in here, right, with this whole fucking statement. So, you know, again, credit to Bluey. We've talked a lot about how his toxicity could have potentially been a problem within the context of the FCB roster, and how all those guys will have egos because they're all strikers. But Bluey seeming quite humble here. And honestly, do you know what? Fucking hats off to him, you know. Like, I think that this guy has a lot of potential going forward in team play, and if you talk about, like, you know, his opportunities as a team player, then maybe we could be seeing something coming out from him in the future. And the future also looks bright for the Triple Trouble boys, as surprise, they managed a sponsor without, you know, getting picked up by a squad, I should say. Xgamer tweeted this from their official accounts the other day. Yesterday, I should actually say, in that they have teamed up with Triple Trouble as a sponsor, which is so fucking weird, honestly, because we were talking about this as the Triple Trouble name back when they were complaining about when they were complaining about things that they about issues of them getting picked up and shit. So we were like, well, guys, just try build your own brand and build your own sponsors. And it's like, they've just done that. This was one of the
names we actually talked about back then, which I've loved so fucking much. Because
Tadpole, are you listening to this show, mate?
I've seen Rick's Ronda every now and then, but like the biggest one for me here is like, so people that don't know Xgamer, it's like British G Fuel, essentially, and they do export to the rest of Europe, but it is just British G Fuel because everyone knows fucking G Fuel, and they sponsor so many fucking streamers because they've got that market down pat. They go for communities and that sort of aspect, and here Triple Trouble is the perfect link up because you have so many community figures now within Triple Trouble that it works for them financially to pick them up. And here, this is the dream for me, because I absolutely fucking love it within other esports when teams go and make their own branding, you know. And here I see, with the backing that Triple Trouble has, it being possible. They're one of the very few. We thought it could happen with Savage, but it was a better choice for them to go to Barca, and that made perfect sense. But you can see this is what we're talking about. You build it up. If none picks you up, you've got enough clout to go and sort out your own deals. I hate that word. Can we not be adults and, you know, say words like prestige, enough infamy, enough, you know, notoriety to clout. Be able to. No, we've got to go with clout. And yeah, it fucking pissed me off, that word. But yeah, good move by Triple Trouble. I'd be interested to see what else happens now, because I could see someone like, you know, let's say a sponsorship from Raven.gg, which I'm pretty sure they already used for those jerseys back in the day, didn't they? So why not actually put that as a bigger name on the brand and build this out?
Because, was it Raven? I thought it was Gamers Apparel.
It was one of the two, but you know what I mean, where they now just have to get up, let's say 3-4 different sponsorships, and knowing what RLRS money is, they could probably be on that line for the players, not about coach and sub, but you know, it is possible to build up that, but it's only Triple Trouble could really do it in this climate.
Well, I'd like to think that Rams is holding his own in terms of the manager role. Like, you know, that's kind of the job of a manager if you're not like part of like an organization, is to sort of like manage the sponsors, you know, manager, for example, you know, so like to reach out and sort of like with your own sort of sponsor decks and trying to get things going with the with some of the big names of the industry. So, you know, I think in that respect, Rams might have been able to secure a pretty decent deal here. I don't know the details of that deal, so I can't say that for certain, but you know, considering the Triple Trouble brand still has a lot of love in people's hearts, like that's obviously awesome. And I was, you know, just not really fucking. I wasn't really ready for that, honestly. I wasn't
expecting it.
I thought that the name had been tainted after the drama that kicked off with the whole Ronicky thing, because obviously they made a massive deal out of that, and you know the statement there is still up. All the retweets are still on the Twitter page, and you know personally, if I'm an organization, if I'm a sponsor that's looking through that, I would have seen that and just been like, okay, that's a little bit suspect. I mean, you know, not my business if Xgamer didn't want to do that, but it's like I didn't expect this to come so soon, you know.
Yeah, definitely, but. Like I said, all on the up, and this will be an interesting one because now it opens the door for us of Xgamer, which is a relatively good sized sponsor, what does this mean for the rest of the team, and where do we go from here? Like we said, with Triple Trouble being a largely UK team, what with Tadpole being Welsh and Bluey being English, could we now get them to feasibly go along to stuff like your Insomnias and actually try and compete that purely for the namesake?
Yeah,
I'm just saying,
them go to Insomnia and
down
not
the
drop
competition.
a single fucking game. Like,
because
that's like,
you got to think, for a lot of sponsors, that's not a bad deal to actually be there, because X Gamer already be selling their shit there. Same with Raven GG or Gamers Apparel. So actually being there, having their name on the team that just goes and absolutely whacks the rest of the competition.
But Bacon, that's only so valuable when you consider it's Insomnia. Okay, like
I'm just saying,
no offense to Insomnia, no offense to the teams that attend it, but this is not like RLCS level, not anymore at least. It's definitely down low in sort of like the bubble scene area of LAN events that we can talk about. Like it's not like it's going to be a massive thing. I mean, if they do go, then credit to them. I'll say hi and I'll buy them a fucking beer. But in terms of the competition itself, like I at least like some sort of close matches, so my time is not a complete waste on that weekend. Like Rocket League is part of the reason I only go to Insomnia anymore, because the CSGO stuff is just, is just a paycheck at that point, because everyone there is terrible. But I digress. That's IEM Catering Tractor. Sorry, no, that meme is that meme has left the ship. Anyways, so there you go. That's Triple Trouble getting sponsored. Best of luck to the boys. I hope it stays that way. And speaking of sponsors, we got another sponsor, another big sponsor, Bacon. I'm really fucking happy about this one.
Oh yes,
because Rocket Baguette announced that Nicecactus, the sponsors of the weekly tournaments that Rocket Baguette have been running, are now also sponsoring the Rising Stars circuit. A total of 5,500 euros up for grabs between the Rising Stars France, Spain and Germany leagues, and then an extra 2,500 euros for the Superstar League as a whole, which is the league which just Rising Stars qualifies you to. Which I have to say, number one, it's a really brilliant idea, a really brilliant way of getting around the whole $5,000 rule. Is that just separate it into those different tournaments. I was actually talking to Boyd at one point, and he mentioned that was the plan for Rocket Baguette going forward. Is that if they want to host their own tournaments, just host like some big 1,000 euro ones, but not so much as to cap out the 50,000 mark, and having them all as one part of a load of mini tournaments in like a much bigger circuit, which is basically what this is. And I have to say, Nicecactus supporting this, having the fact that they've done the weeklies for so long, like this is a fucking PogChamp. I'm really happy with this, because this is the kind of tournament we need to see that bridges the gap between the community and the rival series, which we've so far dubbed as the bubble scene,
Yeah, and you can see the changes coming on in, like, for example, I know, Jay, we've been brought on to do the Rocket Baguette streams, but in English, and you can see that Rocket Baguette are expanding out, taking on the English side themselves. So sponsors are coming on in, and Rocket Baguette are looking to helm the whole of Europe sort of on their back, which I've got faith in those guys, so fuck yes. And it's going to be really exciting, because I know we've been asked to be part of this, and their plans for the upcoming Rising Star circuit is looking good. And that's what we need, especially with these long competitions, is the bubble scene players to really now take the whole hint that we've been saying for ages of, stick together throughout the off season, or if you don't make RLRS, stick together and try and work up together through these, because that chemistry does form and makes you a much stronger opponent. And now they've actually got reason to do it.
I don't think that's enough reason, though. I don't think it's enough money in the pot. I still want to push for even more out of the bubble scene level, because imagine if we could have one big league where rather than having loads of small leagues that leads into a bigger league, we could have just one big fuck off massive tournament for 10,000 euros.
I'm going to say, when this finishes up, which I'm trying to think of when this will finish, because we know the season that opens next week. I want to say it's the 13th, 14th, something like that. Thursday the 13th of next week. And when will that go on to? Because I reckon it'll be at least a good 2-3 months, isn't it? So by the time we hit around to June, when we might be seeing the World Cup, so some teams getting ready for that from your lesser European regions would be quite cool. And at the same time, we might be seeing the first announcements of maybe DreamHacks or other competitions, small LANs going on towards the end of the summer. We know in Europe, teams are quite happy to make the trek out to Leipzig or to Valencia as long as they've got that scrum together. So I think this is more of a preparation, and it's more putting the envelope out there going, who is ready to actually put that dedication and time down?
Yeah, I'm trying to think and figure out when the actual tournament starts. I know the French one was supposed to start today. I don't think it will because of the server issues.
Everything's been pushed back a week, and
everything got pushed back because of the server issues anyway. But regardless, everything going on right now within the context of the Rising Stars and Superstar circuit, like I'm absolutely loving it right now. It's a step in the right direction. Even though I don't think it's enough to ignite the bubble scene, I think it's like a good pushback there. What did you have to say?
I was going to say, sorry about with the 13th. That's when registration closes. And I think it's planned for next weekend, the tournament to start.
Well, there you go then. Be sure to get signed up if you are interested in competing in some of the lower level leagues in the Rocket League scene. I mean, certainly if you're an aspiring pro, this is where you start. And it's another similar format to the whole thing, to the whole thing that RLCS does. So be sure to get involved. Hopefully we'll see you out there on the pitch from the broadcasting side of things. We certainly want to see you out there on the pitch from the broadcasting side of things. And you might be able to take on a few of the big names that we're trying to qualify for Rival Series next week, or potential hopefuls for future seasons. For now, though, we'll leave that there. Again, big stuff for the Rocket Baguette guys. We're really happy that they're continuing to push forward because they could easily crumble like most of the other organizations have, but they're one of the few that are stuck around. And I got to respect the grind, man. I talk to Rocket Baguette a lot. I work for Rocket Baguette quite a bit. You just got a confirmation date? What do you got?
So the Europa Rising Stars will be starting Thursday the 20th, with this Nicecactus Rising Stars starting the 23rd. So we've got Thursdays and Sundays.
There you go, then. There you have it. All right, well, there you go. There's your information for the Nicecactus tournaments, the Rocket Baguette Rising Stars circuit. Make sure you get involved. And speaking of getting involved, we're seeing more and more investment in the last couple of years from mainstream sports, obviously from certain clubs picking up squads. Well, now players have started to get involved. And this is one that caught my eye, even though it's not directly Rocket League related. Rocket League was touted as being one of the games that these guys want to get involved in. Gareth Bale, for those of you who don't know, he's a professional footballer. I think he's Welsh. He's from the UK. Yep. He currently plays for who the fuck is it? Real Madrid. Is that the Real Madrid?
Hand there, Tractor. No, it's funny as seeing Jay squirm about real life stuff. It's funny.
Real life stuff. There's just football things, man. I don't care about football. I knew it was either Real Madrid or FC Barcelona. It was one of those two things. But he started his own organization, an esports organization called 11's Esports. And among the titles that they are already looking at, they've already picked up a FIFA team, as far as I'm aware. But they're also looking at tournament at teams in CS:GO, Rocket League, and Fortnite in the coming few months. And I think in total they've got 11 sort of esports titles that they want to get into. Really appropriate because there's 11's Esports there. This is a little bit of a weird one for me, because I looked at this thinking to myself, why in the fucking hell would Gareth Bale ever want to get involved in Rocket League considering the state of the landscape? But then I remembered, oh shit, yeah, Rocket League is that game which everybody loves and everyone can understand and everyone can get down with it being an esport, so of course it's going to get investment.
It's football cars from a footballer, yeah.
Yeah, football cars from a footballer, and a footballer supports the car football thing. So it's like, this is like a sign that there's so much promise in Rocket League right now. And I'm cautiously optimistic about this whole thing because yes, it's great investment, but I'm scared that investors are going to get burned by the fact that fucking, Psyonixs are not allowing this game to flourish in the way that it could do,
Yeah, so what you expect to happen, and it's already started. Let's take Aries as the example, Jay, with a couple of footballers being the main investors for that. A lot of footballers gain up a lot of money, and naturally they'll go and invest that money because their lifespan in their career is probably only until about 35, 36 years old on average. So, of course, they look into where they can put money. And right now, esports is that big growth industry that everyone's looking at. Thanks Fortnite for that mainly. And right now, you can see the games that they've highlighted are the big ones that make sense. You've got the biggest game, I would say, arguably at the moment, CS, like in esports terms. You got Fortnite right there with its massive popularity as well, marketability. You got FIFA as naturally, he's a footballer, he's going to pick a football game, and then Rocket League, same sort of light. And right now, this is just making sense. As they'll go in, probably test the waters, try and, see what they can do and build a brand. That's what it's all about. So looking at 11s, if they do pick up a Rocket League team, it's probably just going to be an EU RLRS team for low money that's got decent chances to make it on through. And we've said, we know there's a lot of other brands coming into esports. Like you would have seen recently, I know within the sim racing world is getting picked up by a lot of actual racing teams and that, and they're all looking towards all these different games and going, okay, how do we move into other games to build our brands there and sell merch, products, whatever. And it's just going to be the same for footballers. The interesting one here is that it's not just footballers working as sort of investors into a company, but really this is all based around Gareth Bale and his brand, his name making a new brand, which is slightly different from my eyes. It'll be interesting.
Yeah. Again, my problem is that I'm scared that some of this shit's just not going to go as well as these investors want it to go. Investors, they've bought into the hype so hard that they're willing to invest a shit ton of money in shit like Overwatch League, for example, and they're not going to get any return on projects like that. Same could be said to something like Rocket League. What are the business opportunities you have for a Rocket League team? You can make content with them, you can compete in RLCS, and that's about it. There's not much in terms of real world value. And considering the prices of some of these players and stuff, I'm very shocked that a lot of organizations have stayed in. I mean, I've even been hearing as of late, I've been sent a lot of evidence and a lot of information in regards to a certain other tier 1 organization that have held back for the longest fucking time. These guys have been touted in term as being an org that have that have looked to be part of the Rocket League space, but have held back because of Psyonix's own individual sort of actions in terms of the scene. Are you sure who you're talking about? Do you know who I'm talking about here, Bacon?
Yeah.
You know exactly.
We can't reveal that one.
We're not allowed to reveal it. I'm not going to do that unless I have a good enough reason to do so. But there are, but trust me, they are close to the scene in one of the more indirect ways that you wouldn't be able to expect. And the thing is that these are guys that know what they're talking about, and if a guy like Gareth Bale comes in and tries to invest a shit ton of money to overinflate the scene because he just can, the guy's worth fucking millions, what's that going to do to Rocket League as a whole? Is that going to inflate things to the point where RLCS salaries get too unsustainable when everyone drops out? Are we going to be at a position where he gets burned and 11s never comes to the esports to the Rocket League space, and then the game becomes harmed as a result? Because this is not the only footballer that's also invested into his own organization. There are others that have also done the exact same thing, and they're also looking to make moves. This is just the latest one, and the one that kind of got as much attention as it has. And again, I'm happy to see people are invested in Rocket League, but we need to do something with that as a scene. And unfortunately, all that shit rests in the hands of Psyonix.
Yeah, and this is where stuff like, when you look at it, we're trying to be a lot more open about stuff like player salaries and such comes into play, where, like you were saying, the inflation right now would just, if you were to inflate RLRS, and that's just going to absolutely kill the scene, because one team will come on in, let's say, put on money that's equivalent to what RLCS players going, and then no other team is going to want to sign play a certain amount of money. Again, you've got to value your own worth, but it's an awkward scenario where you've got guys that, when I look at this 38 Entertainment, who is the company that's essentially just taking Gareth Bale's name and his money and putting it into esports, I have no fucking idea what they've done in the past. There is near enough no sort of history. They just put themselves as, one's an investor and entrepreneur, the other's ex-professional footballer who I've never even heard of. So what qualifications they have to actually go and deal with this? It'd be interesting what they do come out with, but we'll see. It'll be an interesting one, because Rocket League would definitely be a market where this sort of thing could happen, and you'd see a lot more investors come on in. But like you said, there at the moment is really no return of interest. So will it happen with them coming into Rocket League? I probably doubt it at the moment.
I'm willing to hold out, but again, I'm more concerned about what will happen after the fact. So there you go. That's our thoughts on Gareth Bale and all the shit with regards to him. And finally, a little bit of good news to do this week. This is the World Championship announcement for heading to Dallas this season. Honestly, it is a little bit tainted by the shit that's been gone down this past weekend with all the PsyNet issues. But this was announced on the broadcast. It was announced on Twitter. As you can see, we're off to Dallas with a pretty little swanky trailer there.
Very swanky.
Yeah, I mean, Dallas is all right, you know. I mean, I'm not too much against that. I mean, you know, it seems to fit in with the schedule of the you know 2 NA 1 EU sort of land cycle. So we should be seeing Dallas coming in this one, which is kind of Central America. I'm going to consider that West Coast, so we'll go East Coast, which will probably be something like New York or New Jersey again, and then we'll come back to Europe in 2021, as it seems. So yeah, there you go, Dallas.
Hey, it's a decent place to put this. Like, Texas is massive, of course, and they've got a lot of sport and heritage. But one thing that you pointed out there, that this is mid, well, as South in America as you can go, I think, without going out to like Hawaii, which I don't know latitude-wise. But this is cool because it's in the center. But where do you go after this? Does this count as like Eastern or Western America because it is smack dab in the middle? Or do they go to like North America after this? So instead of like going completely east, they'll go to Wisconsin, because we've had Washington, D.C. and that. Why not go out to actual Washington? You know, like you don't have to be locked to the coast, do you? So then putting Texas was a little bit out of left field because, like we said, they went east and west. So I'm really excited about this because it is just going to open up to a whole new load of fans that might have previously not been able to afford to go out to either coast. Because you look at it with like Europe, for example, it's the same thing as trying to go like if you're going from if you live in, let's say, Colorado and you were trying to go out to California, that's like the distance going from the UK out to, I'd even push maybe towards like Spain, maybe even further actually. Trying to think geography wise, because America is fucking massive. So it's good to mix it around because it opens up to so many people, and that's awesome.
Yeah, well, there you go. That's Dallas for you. That's the LAN Finals. I wish that I could. I wish that I could attend that. Obviously, I can't because, you know, North America. I'd love to go back to Dallas in general because that was a fucking really hype time when I went there. So there you go. That's LAN Finals. And our final story of the week: another team getting picked up from the rival series. ARG. It finally happened, Bacon. They are now BDS. So from one 3-letter acronym to another 3-letter acronym. I'm not sure what BDS stands for. Honestly, it's one letter away from being a fucking kink, but you know, whatever. This is a Geneva-based organization from Switzerland, which kind of surprises me, actually. I thought they'd be picking up a Swiss team, but, you know, I guess probably not. This one has a bit more international representation. Yeah, I mean, it's great for the guys. The org, though, I think they're making a mistake with this one, Bacon. You know, we talked a little bit about ARG's potential next in the next season, and we were thinking that this is the season where they drop off.
Yeah, we were saying, like, we don't really know what's going on with ARG. So it's an interesting one that they've been picked up. I mean, it was about time. We expected ARG really to get picked up by one of the continuous Spanish football clubs that are all about in Rocket League. You know, you got RCD Espanyol there. We've seen Valencia in the past and all of that. And we were just expecting one of those Spanish clubs to go pick them up because they're the best Spanish team. So for, like you said, a Swiss team, Team BDS, to come on in, it was very interesting. But Team BDS, we've been doing a little bit of research on these guys, and because coming into this, their big names come from Rainbow Six and Apex, and they've only recently been big in Apex. Rainbow Six is a little bit longer, but they've only really just hit their stride. They're going to be at the massive invitationals coming up, I want to say next weekend. 3 million going on there between 16 teams from all around the world, and it's like before their massive league play starts up, because they now have moved over to, I believe, once a year for their league play, but they do more of these invitationals and that. But this is quite a cool pickup because by looking at the org, they're very young, only a year and a half old, but they've been making a lot of smart plays recently. So this will be an interesting one to do with their first outing in Rocket League.
Yeah, they've got a Rainbow Six team as far as my knowledge, but I don't think they have... they've got an Apex team as well, but they don't have a website, so it's very difficult to sort of like weigh up exactly what they've got. I mean, they have stated on their profile that they've got like, you know, a Rainbow Six, a Fortnite, a Call of Duty, a Teamfight Tactics, Rocket League, and Apex team. But a little bit more information would be great, you know, like, you know, putting your fucking shop link in your official sort of their website bio. It's very uni, lads. Let's be real here, guys. You know, that's the shit that they were doing because they basically didn't care about promoting the esports landscape. Like, you know, get a website. It's not that hard. You know, I know that we.
If the brand was alive for 6 months and had it like this, I'd be somewhat okay. But sort of like, how have you not got an actual website set up yet? So a year and a half into life and still not having a website when you've got. I've got them up on Twitter right now. There you go. 23.7 thousand followers on Twitter, and you don't have a website. Just pay a company and get that up within easily a month completed. Like,
should be noted, by the way, bad. Like, you know, I've looked into it these last month and a half about getting a website set up. Like, it's not that expensive, you know, like in the grand scale of things. Like for an individual, probably it would be quite a bit of expense. But you know, if you pull the right strings, you'll be able to set it up no problem as an individual. As an organization, it's basically a fucking necessary investment. So you know, I'm already not liking BDS's attitude entering the Rocket League space. Whether or not the team is a good investment for them, personally, I don't think so. In current retrospect, we'll find out later down the road. But yeah, the fact of the matter is they're part of Rocket League esports scene now. We'll be calling them BDS going forward. What do we think about their potential in terms of, you know, the rival series chances? Like, you know, is this going to be anything of any note, or is this just an organization pickup that might last for a season at best?
I would imagine it'd be longer than a season, and I reckon BDS are probably looking at this and going, we've got a team that, you know, has now been in Rivals for 2 seasons, and they're probably quite happy if the team just sticks in Rivals, you know? They're probably wanting a team that's just going to hold that name and keep them there for a while and make that push. The team probably does have the expectations to make it up to that promotion area and really fight, but as long as they stay in the rival series, you know, top 6, I reckon BDS will be okay and happy for that, but their real target is to be top 3 and making a push for that RLCS. And you'd hope that BDS are trying to invest in this team and improve it, because you look at the players and they do have the potential to make it through to RLCS. Probably not this season. It's not going to happen. Like we said, we reckon there's going to be a drop off and they're probably just going to be scrambling to make it into the top 6. But all the best for them, realistically. Like, I hope they upset us and just somehow have come off crazy. And, you know, they haven't been playing in any tournaments, but they've been scrimming their asses off. Haven't heard of them scrimming, but we hope.
Well, whether or not they'll be able to do that remains to be seen. But for the best of, for what it's worth, good luck to the BDS boys, seeing if they can make it into the Championship Series for next season or stay in Rival Series for the season afterwards. That's going to be the news for us done. Quite a lot of news, again, considering the main thing was all about the fucking server issues. Like, I think that we've managed to squeeze quite a lot out of that first segment, and we'll be able to squeeze a lot out of our second segment as well. Again, there are no results for this week, obviously. So we put the call out on Twitter, we put the call out on Discord, say, guys, send us some mailbag questions so we can have, like, you know, a fucking show to run this week, because otherwise I don't think we'll be able to justify only doing the news. But I think we've had enough time to get into these ones. A lot of questions came in, I think the most we've ever had for a show. So keep them coming, guys. And if you guys want to you know, get involved in the podcast, there's ! Discord in the Twitch chat right now. So you can join the Discord server and send questions in the mailbag channel, which chances are will answer live on an episode of RLAfterShock. If you're listening for the audio and video versions of the podcast, it's in the show notes and video descriptions, as they always are. So lots of stuff to talk about here, Bacon. So we'll start with Mr. Jens himself. He asks for LAN League play, and considering the situation that happened this weekend, this has become a lot more of a tangible thing that people want to see out of Rocket League. Not surprising, considering, you know, a lot of the shit could get you know, sort of a lot of the shit could be negated by the fact of having like a LAN League play situation. Like, I don't think the dedicated servers for the DreamHack and the World Championship need to use PsyNet. But I don't agree that LAN League play should be a thing. It's way too difficult to set up, in my opinion, especially with the age range of a lot of the players in the Rocket League space, considering that a lot of them still have to go to school. They've got to, be accountable as legal adults, I think, even to be athletes. Like it's too difficult to run a LAN League play. And I don't think Rocket League is ready for it because it requires a lot of money to run a LAN, to run LAN League play. Like you lose quite a bit of cash on that front, unless you have some balling out of fucking control sponsors. So like, Rocket League's just not ready for it right now. I think to fix this one weekend of issues, it's not worth it to change the landscape of the entire, RLCS season,
Yeah, we can understand, like you said, how the pros to LAN League play is there. The biggest one for me would be that, like, the problem of this weekend wouldn't be existing. You put out an update patch that, without a PTR currently could just completely fuck up the game. We've seen that in the past. And you could just be there like, okay, on this LAN, we'll just run a previous patch. No problems for the league play. But right now I quite like, and I'm a big fan of LANs being epic, and that's like stepping up to that level. So the one thing we've always screamed about is making regional championships an actual LAN like situation, because yes, you're only running with 6 teams in that case, which is more manageable for the logistics of everything. Plus, making it a small live arena, let's just say a 1,000 sort of audience at max is fine. And it makes it a bit more special and more notable and awesome, because right now, when it ever comes around to the regional championships with RLCS, I don't know about you, but I just feel like it's a bit of a tack on. It's not actually necessary to be there. I feel like you could just take the top 4 from league play and, maybe just you'd be fine just running with that. But it's having that extra step, so that's actually making the most out of that extra step. So yeah, right now LAN League play, not needed. Don't run with that. Not worth it money wise, especially with how Psyonixs handles their product of RLCS. But turning those regionals into a LAN event, fuck yes, we need that.
Yeah, I have to agree. And to address that, I know that a lot of people want to know, why wouldn't, what could be the alternative solution if you don't have a LAN League player to fix the issues of the PsyNet stuff? Well, the very simple thing that I have to say is dedicated servers. Because right now, the way that you make RLCS matches and any other, competitive match happen online is you have to go through the private lobby thing. You have to go through that and try and boot it to the point where you get a stable server, everything's tested and fine, and then certain people have permissions to sort of like pause matches and shit. So it's like it's a very vanilla way of running an esport. And the thing about dedicated servers is that if you were to use the dedicated server, you could bypass all the problems that PsyNet has had this weekend, and you could just connect straight to it and run the fucking match off that. I know that a lot of LAN events, a lot of small-time LAN events use the whole like play on local network thing, which is not as stable as you'd like it to be, but it is like, a decent sort of, it is like a very underground alternative.
The LAN build has got so much better.
Yeah, the LAN build is much better, but ideally it would just be a case of one game client and just get some dedicated servers hooked up to the network. So
at the moment, Psyonixs does have premium dedicated servers, which they do use for RLCS. The problem is, and the problem with this weekend is that those servers still use the regular PsyNet sort of how things are run. So those premium servers wouldn't have helped this weekend at all, because it's the integration not working. So it's coming down to this weekend is a very unique problem with the game. But yeah, I can't explain it more than that. They've got dedicated servers, which does mean that their league play games are a big problem. This all cropped up after, like you said, your way of how you thought it was running was back in like season 2 or 3 when you could see everything lagging out on the stream.
Well, here's the thing, right? Like, if we had truly dedicated servers, then this wouldn't be a problem, because the way I don't think people understand what a dedicated server really is. Like, yeah, the premium server that's like, it's exclusive for RLCS matches is great and all, but it's still as part of the PsyNet system. If I talk about a match in CSGO, for example, you don't connect to it via the in-game client. You have to go through like a backend almost. So you have to go through the developer console, enter in a command, connect to a certain IP address. It's very simple. It's very basic. Anyone that can do it really, but it's just like a simple case of connect command and then IP address password. Simple as that, and then you're into this dedicated server outside of the Valve matchmaking system. And that's the thing we need to do, to avoid all the issues with PsyNet.
Developer tools and that sort of developer tools as such, but an outside way to get in.
Yeah, just like an outside way. And that could open up, and I realize why Psyonixs won't do this, because I don't want anyone to touch their back end. But it's like, guys, if you had that backup system in place, then it's so fucking easy to shut up. It's so easy to just evade everything that happened this weekend, like everybody else does it. League of Legends fucking does this. Obviously CSGO does this, it's what's allowed stuff like Faceit and shit to thrive. Everyone does this. Everybody does this. So why not Rocket League,
Why can't, the thing there is, why can't there just be there must be some sort of developer mode. They could have just went to the players this weekend, gone, oh shit, this is going on. Yes, we'll throw the RLRS Play-ins back a week or whatever, but RLCS will keep running, and we'll just all guys will send you this private version that you just got to quickly go download and then put in this code for the server stuff into whatever and try and fix that. But I think it all just comes down to this wasn't expected this weekend. They just didn't have that ready to run.
I mean, better still, what you could do is enable those, those dedicated server tools to be publicly accessed, and then anyone can, run their own systems like that. And that way, you could give the RLRS 12018 bracket to someone like a Smash DG or a Faceit, and just say, here you go. Because that's the thing about Faceit, right? People don't understand how the Faceit matchmaking system works. It works entirely off dedicated servers, just they're all connected through one website. So it's very easy just to, hello doggo, it's very easy to run a bracket and just have people, play out that bracket within the context of the Faceit sort of ecosystem. And then not only do you get to alternate everything, you get to do it in the most stable environment that is possible for esports. So that's the reason why everyone's been begging for dedicated servers. Not just so that community players and community members can jump in and start running their own tournaments and their own LAN events. It's so that the foundations of the esport as a whole actually fucking, work, essentially. So that's my take on it. I don't think LAN League play is necessary whatsoever. I do think, however, that there needs to be, better systems in place for the RLCS and the online component of it in order for it to be successful.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Agree 100% there. Yeah. Moving on.
Moving on. Okay, there you go. John, aka Always, go over the seeds for play-ins and how on earth Danish Dynamite got 10th seed. Also, could also do your annual state of the scene. Okay, sorry, that's his suggestion as what we could do as part of the feature. We were going to do the state of the scene address today, but considering the amount of responses we got,
that at the end of the year with the whole year rundown. That's my only thing.
To a certain extent, we didn't go in depth with all the topics. I think come around March time when we hit the sort of the yearly sort of when we hit sort of the year mark of when we did that first state of the scene address. We'll do that later on down the road when we hit that sort of milestone.
It's more because of the problems and the state of the scene things we have split up and sort of we do as features dependent on the week if it needs to fill in with a show. That's why why blow your load all on one podcast when you can split out slightly.
For those of you who enjoyed the State of the Scene address, because I know that there were a lot of people that really enjoyed that episode, and there are a lot of people that also that are community figures that saw it and agreed with us behind the scenes. Don't worry, to you guys, we will come back with it when the time is right. We will address everything that we addressed back in there and then some. So let's just go over the seeds for the play-ins for today. Bacon, do you have the seeds for the play-ins today?
I can open Smash and quickly pop them up. I
wasn't going to use Smash because I have no idea how the fuck to see the seeds.
It's just standings at the moment. The current standings are the seeds.
The standings. Okay, yeah. I will see if I can bring that up. But as a general sort of, okay, I see them now. Okay, I understand.
We sort of went over what we think.
Let's go through the top 25 roughly of how of the thing and talk about that. And I guess we'll start with that whole Danish Dynamite thing.
Scare me. Me and Danny were talking about this in private last week and just both agreed that they're fucking scuffed. And it's not looking pretty for this coming like the play-ins, purely because there's way too much weight at the moment on player names rather than how they're actually playing.
That's the thing. That's the thing, right? This time last year, we had a shit ton of information to pull from because we had the Renegade Cup going on. We had loads of community tournaments. We had like rival monthlies. We still had a couple of weeklies. We didn't have a major number of them like we do at the moment with the Nicecactus and the Drama alerts and stuff like that. So honestly, I don't blame them for putting emphasis on name value because they don't really have much of a choice. We've talked about this before, and that's the reason why you see shit like Danish Dynamite at 10th fucking position. Guys, we talked about this last week.
Skirmishes, all the Nicecactus stuff going on, the Omni Rocket stuff. There is stuff to look at, Jay.
There are things to look at, but it's like, it's not quite as prevalent as the bubble scene was last season. So I don't blame them too much. There are things to look at, and I think that those should have taken priority. I absolutely agree with you. But, in terms of like the seedings as a whole, they suffer as a result of this. And again, Danish Dynamite, for example, they should not be in the top 25. Fuck you, no. They're all, with the exception of Pondex, they're all washed. They're all washed. Like, there's no way that these guys should have gotten 10th seed. No fucking way whatsoever. It's a complete fucking shambles and a complete embarrassment that they thought that would be the case. So why was this a thing?
And looking at the Swiss Royale stuff that Rocket Central put on as well, you can get an idea from there. And this is a funny one. Like, not just saying in chat, Daz really came in clutch for EU. Daz has been doing this every single season. So it's not that he's come in clutch. It's just he's continued the work. Just we're appreciating
his skirmishes only were doing in North America.
How big it is.
The skirmish was only for North America, so for European seedings,
it was like one or two.
I think the first one he did earlier this year was his first European one. I remember him saying it after he got the $2,000 of donations. So, seeing all that shit, I think that, he helped out to a certain extent, but it did certainly have a fucking, it certainly could have been a bit more information to pull from. And I think that they kind of left that whole thing to be remiss, which sucks really, because again, some of these are great, like We Them Girls. I think that's a good top seed. RJM, not a good top seed. Sorry, no fucking way. That should not be number 2. Mike Boy, RizX, and Justice. I feel like they just put that there because Mike Boy and Justice are there with RizX, who's like an El Clasico. No, this is not a top 2 team.
Danny has literally just sent me a spreadsheet with all the seeds in it. I was looking at Smash anyway, but this is much easier.
Do you want to send me a link to that then? Because Smash is awkward.
Yeah, the problem with Smash at the moment is that you can't actually see the player names. It's just the team name. So Danny coming in clutch. I had your previous sheet open last time as well, which I added on, like I said. Danny's been doing a ton of work in the background. He has been absolutely awesome and holding up a lot this season coming up. But yeah, looking at the seeds, for me, the biggest one here that I'm going to pick from is RCG, which is Coca, Nagflow, Domain. Now, don't get me wrong, they're two parts, third seed. So they're two parts of the Vertex team from last season, where Coca and Domain. But adding in Nagflow, I don't see any value, and I don't know how they've gone from, being a relatively, they weren't a low seed at all. They were 7th or 8th last season, but how they've increased. When you've got stuff like RCDS Banner, are really having great performances. When you look at name value as well, the boys, a lot Burrito being Calix, they're actually I can appreciate that rank of being 5th because they've also put in the results. Block have been really raised up because of their results, but it's you're showing that results are getting you far, but then there's weird throw-ins like the Danish Dynamite side that had no results at all at the moment.
Well, that's the thing. It's I understand why you'd put DCG up somewhat, but it's when you consider the boys and who they are, and although their results kind of hinder them a little bit, DCG, I don't think they've got any major results to speak of in the off-season, with the exception of, I believe, the Rising Stars Superstar League. Outside of that, I don't think that they had a major amount, and I feel like, again, having taken away one part of that Vertex roster, like, I feel like it's fucked them up quite a little bit in terms of, like, you know, their own team play. So that's something you've got to take into account as well. Like, how much of the previous RLRS season should really count towards their seeding in the RLRS play-ins? I don't think that it should. I don't think that it should count as highly as if the same 3-man team had gone in there. If that was the case, that it was the same team as before, okay, I can see an argument to put them up in the top 3. I personally wouldn't do it, but I would concede that to you. This makes no sense, though. Block Ears, again, as you say, you know, that team got a lot of great results, so they should be. I'd say they probably should be higher. 3 of a kind, I would put them in the top 4. You know, exclusively from name value alone. So why the fuck are they down there in 7th? And just they expect them to barely make it in, whereas I think they're actually going to make a pretty good upper bracket run.
Yeah, like we've all seen the results. 3 of a kind are easily higher than DCG and probably on par with RJM at the moment for capabilities. So that's an interesting one there. You got Galaxy Bang behind them, which I think 8th is about right for this team, because on a good day they're incredible, but we've seen them on bad days. Awkward Turtles, I have not been impressed by all season long. But they're there purely because they're near enough a returning RLRS team like DCG, but by that point DCG should be down by whereabouts Awkward Turtles are.
Yeah, I think that it's just been so awkwardly done, you know. I think we kind of expected the seedings to be very awkward for this season, but like I didn't expect them to be quite as bad as this. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, Bacon, I guess at this point I should ask you, like, if you had to redo the seedings and have your own sort of, like, you know, your own seeding bracket, who would you put as the top 10 in order from 1st to 10th?
Oh, so first, of course, We Dem Girls.
That's fine.
No one can probably argue with that. Second, I do quite like RGM at the moment, but
really?
I would probably change that with RCD Espanol.
Okay, I thought you were going to say keep RJM
Third
there.
would be like, RJM for me, because they're actually really super solid if you've been looking at how these guys have been playing. 4th, I'd probably put 3 of a kind. 5th, I would put down the boys, but like I've said before last week, I reckon they're going to flop out of this because I just don't think they'll make it. For some reason, my gut's telling me that way. 6th would probably be Block, so they're already 6th, so that's actually quite cool and handy. But yeah, then my problem doesn't really come in largely from the top 10, but and it comes down to all problems of the whole scene as a whole. But going past 10th, let's go all the way down to 26th, and how stuff like trying to have a look like Exilium has actually got a decent ranking for themselves, but they've struggled to actually put in the performance, whereas players like pro golf players who've actually been doing pretty good in this off season are down in 17th. By their results, they probably just averaged out a little bit higher than the ones above, but we don't know how Psyonixs are, you know, or whoever's doing the seeding for this. And I'm going to say, I find seeding's a weird one anyway, because anyone within the top, let's just say 20, trying to do multiples here in my head, 28, I think, no, 32. Yeah, so anyone within the top 32 should be able to make in a run for RLRS realistically. So if you're within that range, you're fine. Don't worry about your seeding from then on, because yes, you're going to run into a hard team, whatever, but where it's a double or limb J, you're going to have that bounce back. So the teams, if they're worrying about seeds, I'm going to say just sharp and play your games. Like, you're focusing on the wrong aspect. Just make yourselves the strongest you can be. But yeah, I think this all comes down to the whole state of things at the moment is made seeding pretty hard. And so the seeders now have to really rely upon those team names because it's hard to weigh up results against results.
Yeah.
I went a really roundabout way of getting to my point now. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think you rambled for quite a bit there, Bacon. Anyways, let's move on. Thanks again, John, for your question. Tagmata talks about, wants us to talk about the RKNC and how having a LAN Finals in the Razer London store for a £500 prize. But for those of you who don't know what this is,
that's true.
The Rocket Kingdom National Championship. Wow. I didn't think it was newsworthy. It's a £500 tournament, so, you know, it's a bit, yeah, you know. I mean, again, I like the fact that Rocket Kingdom are doing shit. But the interesting thing that caught my eye was the fact that they actually were able to secure a deal where they were holding the grand finals in the Razer London store.
Also, one thing to note as well is Rocket Kingdom not joining the Rocket Baguette stuff for the British portion.
I think that's because they took out the UK, the UK Rising Stars League, which is fair enough, because I think that once you hit that point in the UK, like, you know, the UK scene, it's got a lot of great players in it, but once you get to a point of comparing them on a national basis, if you compare like the big sort of names against the lesser sort of names, you get to some really one-sided results because of that, which is nothing against the players and the teams as a whole, but it's just like a thing in the nature of the scene. We've got a lot of great talents and a lot of great players, but sadly not everyone in the UK is among that sort of name. You know, you can't possibly be a nation that produces such great talents.
There was always
there will be, you know, if a nation produces the best team in the world, then everyone else below in that nation will always be comparatively inferior to that, you know.
Definitely. But yeah, then Rocket Kingdom keeping on with the £500 tournament being hosted, like you said, at a Razer store. This is awesome stuff, because it actually, for me, shines out to other up and coming, let's say, grassroots orgs, where, you know, these are possibilities. You just get talking to brands and just say, hey, for the cost of nothing, can we just host this and, you know, bring people into stores and try and run a little bit of marketing events for you? It gives little ideas, because I'd imagine Razer aren't putting any of that 500 quid down. Like I said, that's not confirmed at all. That's just me saying I don't expect they would have done that, but it's just, yeah, you can use our space for free and hold this event here and we'll market it, and it's just good outreach for us. But other orgs use this as a sign of you can do it as well.
Yeah, I like it. Obviously, it's great for Rocket Kingdom. I didn't want to talk about it too much though, because I haven't really got much to say on it. You know, again, it's cool, it's great. I hope the UK does something great with it, and we'll find out how far it goes. So, moving on, Trox, our boy, our social media manager, our server manager, help keeping the show alive at this point. I had to call him in just before we got started so we could get the team speak up so we could record the fucking show. But he sends us this. Speed's comments on the issues, talking about talking about what Speed was saying in respect to the what's it called? To the server down issue. This was the post that went on Reddit saying that it was Google services that were down as a whole. And Speed came out and made a statement that kind of sort of speaks for everyone who's sort of criticized Psyonixs to a certain extent. I mean, I had a bit to say about this. I was going to put this in the actual news segment, but I figured that because it was asked in the mailbag, I'll save it for this, because it can kind of expand to its own individual topic. But Tractor, if you want to bring this up on screen, then the link is still in the show notes. So I'll read you the whole excerpt, because I'll try to read you the footnotes of the excerpt. I don't want to go too in depth because it is a pretty fucking big little thing. But Speed says, people seem to believe we, referring to pros and community figures, and also talking about myself, are all bashing Psyonixs for server issues, which isn't true at all, because most of us know it's out of our control. We are bashing them because they have got an esport with comfortable tier 1 capability, and instead they seem to want they want ways to
wash it down the drain.
His fucking spelling is awful. And that messes me up as a dyslexic. So they want to wash it down the drain. Let me explain. They say they don't do anything for DreamHack for the first half of the year to focus on RLCS and Olympics. In the next instance, we have absolutely no clue what the Olympics is going, how the Olympics is going to work. Less than half a year away from the supposed qualifiers. We don't even have a date for them. 5,000 cap. Backing up my last point, I have no problem with this if you want to do regular majors, but since you have elected to focus your energy into 2 tourneys, surely you could outsource big majors to other respectable TOs such as ESL or Face It. Stuff that we've also talked about in the past. You know? Lack of transparency. Today showed this. We waited 80 minutes for the pre-show for them to give absolute confirmation that the servers are fucked and there won't be any games this weekend. And I understand their reasoning, but at the very least, instead of having some vague resolving technical issues down the bottom right of the screen, at least convey to the 80,000 people watching that perhaps this delay isn't a case of someone not joining, but perhaps an entire annihilation of the service the game runs on. Some people work long, strenuous hours and have just wasted a good 30 minutes watching a screen. Blah 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 blah. I attempted to make this post to be compromised of mainly easier fixes, one that requires less manpower and less money. There are so many other issues, but because of the price or difficulty or privacy of the issue, I won't say on here, but you can see mine and many of my competitors' complaints from just a snapshot of the issues that we have. What I'm trying to say in here is a lot of the pros have their pitchforks out, but at least for me, that isn't because of something like this that's out of their control. It's because the handling of the esport that's in their control. It's because of the handling of the esport that's in their control, which we all love, and the esport that has so much potential to be top 3 in the world. That is sort of a rough sort of generalization. I know I read about 90% of the whole fucking statement, but I have to say that Speed summarizes my thoughts up pretty well on this front. But I have to say, this is the wrong little place to sort of like do it in. I don't remember a whole lot of people really coming at us for like, you know, giving Psyonixs shit about the server issues. Like, you know, obviously in terms of the whole sort of narrative and the story of Psyonixs' handling of the esports situation, this is another fucking like, a peg in the bedpost of shit that they fucked up, you know, and it is their fuck up, by the way, guys. You know, again, if the servers go down, then you have to have contingency plans in place. We've already talked about this, regardless of the PsyNet problems, regardless of the Google problems, you know, that is a fuck up on Psyonixs' part. And I agree with Speed to a certain extent, but like, you know, I feel like this was the wrong place to sort of like, you know, rant about this, you know, because in the end it is still a thread and a topic about the Google outage and the server outage, and we can meme the shit out of it and talk about everything. The issues in regards to Psyonixs' own individual sort of like, handling of the esport, that's like a discussion for a completely different day, I think.
Well, it's the discussion we've had multiple times before, I think. And the big takeaway from this and why we left it in the mailbox is more that pros now aren't afraid anymore. They're not there going, it's working for us.
I'm not afraid. Sorry, I figured that was just like the appropriate moment to drop that in.
It's more the fact that pros are there going, stop being scared of just running your RLCS and your own little closed bubble things. This needs to expand. Otherwise, it's not. Because pros at the same time, you got to think for these guys, it's their job. So they're looking, probably in the early days, like, we don't want to upset Psyonixs too much. You know, we rely upon this because it's our career, but now it's coming to the point of they're going, no, this needs to be changed, otherwise that's going to be the end of our career, because this could all just get washed away within 2 years, when they're going to want this to last, 4 or 5, be able to make a living and then move on further from that. So for pros to speak out now is a drastic changing point, and why we keep banging on about it, because it needs to change. And it's good that the pros are finally like getting to that tipping point themselves.
Well, I mean, I don't know about the pros in general, because I know that there were some pros that were defensive of Psyonixs. Like Speed has always had my respect, because he's a lot like me in the sense that he says what he says what he wants and doesn't give a fuck about anybody else. You know, because it's what's on his mind, and what he believes is what he believes in, and he fights to defend that belief to the end. You know, and I respect him for that. I just think that this is not the right place to say it in. And again, I agree with Speed on his own points. I think the issues that Psyonixs have are down to confidence in taking risks. Especially with the conversations that we've had over the last couple of weeks, over the last month or so, Bacon, in regards to some of the stuff that we've heard about Psyonixs' operations and the way that they've handled things in the past. Like, a lot of the issues that they have are down to the fact that they do not want to risk it on the esports thing, which to me it seems so backwards, obviously, because I'm an esports guy. They don't want to risk it
on the game as well. The game hasn't really been, putting in anything new over the last 2-3 years.
Well, that's the thing. That's the reason why I highlight stuff like the Gareth Bale stuff, because like if there's any sort of indication to Psyonixs that esports can work, that's it. That's a fucking multi-millionaire that's looking to invest in your game, right? He's looking to invest in your esports ecosystem. He's not the only one that wants to do that. The others are just being held back. So let's fucking, open the floodgates and shit. And, I mean, again, the stuff that I've heard behind the scenes and the stuff that I've heard from other TOs and other agencies and other organizations seems to be the fact that, Psyonixs are the main reason why they're not willing to get in. And like some of the situations and things that have held them back from getting in seem absolutely ridiculous, like in terms of just general communication. Psyonix's own sort of like, you know, attitude towards organizations leaving and not wanting to come in have also been ridiculous. We had that interview on Rocketeers where Josh turned around and said you know, we don't really pay attention to organizations leaving the scene, which is like, guys, you do realize how much of a bad fucking look that looks to the rest of the esports scene. Like, you know, that's not a good fucking thing to say, especially to other. That's arrogance, and that is complacency, and that is also to organizations looking at that like, well, fuck you too. Then, you know, that's what they'll do. They'll take a look at that saying, you don't care about us, so why should we care about you? And you need that investment. And yeah, again, I agree with Speed on this one. You know, Speed has always sort of like spoken the truth, and he seems to be pretty accurate and pretty confident in what he says, to the point where he does understand what's going on, you know?
Oh, yeah, definitely. He's giving you first-hand thoughts, and like I said, where it's coming from the players themselves. They know what's going on. They've generally got a good idea, and like a lot of our like sources where we do back up with players, you know, going, is this okay? Is this what's going on? And it's all because they have a lot more direct communication to Psyonixs, of course. They have been one of the first ones to learn about it, alongside, like, say, Rival with the TO aspect from this weekend of what is going on. And it's just that point of people that are getting that direct communication are still being left out, you know, with that transparency, which is a problem. But it's good that finally it's coming up.
I just want to the Twitch chat as well. Not Josh actually asked something very interesting that I want to draw attention to. I don't usually take a look at the chat too much, or I don't respond to the chat too much, but I feel like this is one that actually could be interesting. He says, quote, "Do you ever think it's a strategic hold? It doesn't look like they have the infrastructure in place to handle the explosion that could happen if they open everything up." To start things off, people massively underestimate the state of Psyonixs right now. They are not a small indie developer trying their best to scrimp and save and get things off the ground. No. PS Plus launched Rocket League to hundreds of thousands of people. They wanted, at best, 10,000 people to join to play Rocket League. You know, that was their aim in terms of, like, you know, maximum concurrence. They have superseded that fucking, you know, 100-fold. They've gone so much further than 10,000. They've gone, you know, so much further than even, I think, some of their wildest dreams. You know, they've made so much money off of rocket passes and crates and blueprints and everything like that. And the esports shop as well, most recently, has, you know, been a surprising success. I didn't think it would actually work as well as it did. You know, I still don't like a lot of the mechanics behind it, and a lot of other people don't, but they're making money. You know, they're selling some of the items, so it's working to a certain extent. Like, Psyonixs have a lot more money than people seem to that they're letting on. You know, the problem again is mentality. Is it a strategic hold? That depends on your mentality. Strategic in the sense that they don't want anyone to touch it because it's their baby and they don't want anyone to ruin it. Yeah, it's a strategic hold. Is it the right idea? No, it's not the right idea, because it's going to kill the esport
plan. And like you said, we reckon it'll kill the esport because it's so narrow-minded over then the whole overarching ecosystem that could be put down. And it comes down to stuff like them saying, "Oh, we'll review the 5K sort of like cap bits." Like, okay, but when are you going to review it? When can we expect this? You've got to think, when it comes to a lot of organizations that are putting on tournaments, and we're not just talking about the ones that you know from the community, but overarching big companies that do run off of running LANs and events for bigger sponsors, where they need to know this, because your sponsors, like, let's say we talked about earlier, Razer or Intel, Red Bull, all of that, they put their money down months and months in advance. So when you can get in that information of, okay, you're going to be putting that, let's say they increase the prize pool like coverage from $5,000 up to $20,000 or whatever, and they say, okay, that is going to come into place in October, for example, and they can say, we're going to be looking at that and you can expect it. That means those companies can start going out now or whatever and start putting those plans into place, because otherwise it's just a lot of delaying and holding up. And then, like you said, that just means whatever at the top end is going to just be held by Psyonixs, which is the way they want it. But what if we had ESL running, not league play, but like their own, say, DreamHack Pro circuit going on at the same time?
What if we had RLCS being the de facto tournament, but if we had, you know, DreamHack running Pro circuit and ESL running an IEM event? for fucking Rocket League. You know, like what was it? I think one of the things that Paul Red Eye Challoner said about the IEM circuit when he was talking about when he was working for ESL, he was saying that we'll get Counter-Strike Global Offensive up on the IEM circuit if it can break 75,000 concurrent. We've done that for Rocket League, so why don't we get a fucking IEM going? You know, it's so easy for them to do it as well because Intel are the sponsors. They've made inroads via the Intel World Open. If Psyonixs opened the floodgates and said, ESL, run some IEM events, like that's a prestigious circuit. That would fucking catapult Rocket League, in terms of the traditional esports especially, that would catapult it into legitimacy. You know, it absolutely would, because IEM's been going for 16 seasons, for 16 years, something like that. You know, they've been going for a fucking long ass time. I don't know the specific dates, but it's among those sort of numbers, you know, way back for the early days of StarCraft, original fucking Brood War, you know, the Warcraft games. Like, you know, this is a circuit that covers some of esports' most oldest and memorable history, essentially. And for me to get something like that going would be great. And I understand that, you know, I understand what your mentality is as well. You know, the other like, cool man, do your thing. How can we help? The problem is that when we want to help, Psyonixs shut us out. You know, I can name 3 tournaments off the top of my head. I won't do that for privacy reasons, but I can name 3 tournaments off the top of my head that Psyonixs shut down because and I know those because I was involved in those tournaments, that they shut it down because they didn't want us to run it. You know, even though it's not even, 2 of those tournaments weren't even sponsored by Psyonixs. One was a pitch for Psyonixs to sponsor, fair enough on that front. The other 2 though, we had independent sponsors ready to roll. One of which was a stage event. So it's like, if Psyonixs don't want us to run that, then what can we possibly do? Well, we can run the $5,000 tournaments at a massive loss. And that was the one that weeklies don't make money. You know, it's a problem. It's a problem. You know, Psyonixs don't want anyone to access their back end through what seems to be arbitrary reasons. I haven't seen a legitimate reason why no one should why they don't want that to happen. I haven't seen many reasons as to why some of these tournaments shouldn't happen, when the truth of the matter is that in the grand scale of things, it's fucking, you know, a blip on the radar, essentially. But I'm rambling at this point. We've gone so far away from the fucking main topic. You know, thank you for your engagement, mate. You know, we appreciate all the content and shit because, well, we're kind of padding at this point. But yeah, to wrap things up, Speed's comments kind of sums everything up. You know, I think that a lot of it can be agreeable. We could talk for fucking hours on this, to be honest. But the truth is that I've got ESL stuff coming up in about, you know, an hour and a half, so I still got to have dinner, I still got to get things ready. So we're going to try and move towards wrapping up the show here, Bacon. We have one final little question here from Freecant. We've kind of gone over half of this, so we kind of already have. We kind of already have a little bit of sort of like returning topics, but he asks, what do you think of RBRS, the Rocket Baguette Rising Stars returning? And also, what team in EU has the most personality? We'll start with the Rocket Baguette Rising Stars circuit. Obviously, we think it's amazing. I just wish it could just go that little bit further, man. I just wish it could just be the premier bubble tournament because it has so much potential to do that. And I feel like that if it did, then we'd actually have like a stopgap between the RLRS and the rest of the community.
So, on that note, big shout, like, if you're a player that's watching or you know players, get them to fucking play in this, because if it gets a massive turnout, Nicecactus will put more money down. They might even be open to getting in non-conflicting sponsors and make this a bigger thing. Because you got to think, yes, there is that 5K cap, but what if you turned it into 3K monthlies, for example, with a 5K final, and we're able to, like, you know, compound it into a little bit like what has gone on over with the 30K Astro stuff, you know, over in America. That is possible, just there's got to be a reason to put it on in Europe right now, and it comes down to the players playing on in it and people watching, so try and just hype that up as big as possible. But at the moment, it's just looking good. It's all improvements going on in the scene, because I was a little bit worried because the viewership, bar like the finals, wasn't great for the Rising Stars, I think, but it just shows that the finals are where it's at, and people really just want to see the top teams play.
Yeah, you know, that's where it's going to get the most, which is the reason why I fucking love the idea of having like an IEM event in, for example. Because it's like, you know, imagine the viewership that we'd get if we had like an IEM all on LAN for like a week, you know, just play all the group stage from Monday through Thursday, then Friday, Saturday, Sunday being the playoffs at an IEM tournament. Like, that would be a fucking, you know, just incredible sort of week of action.
You do the online build-up stages, like the smaller bits where teams are qualifying, like making their grassroots, that again, like you said, on Mondays to Thursdays, which is the big one. Psyonixs just does not see that if you give them just one single weekend, they could work it out and they'd be happy to do that. It's just that thing of they don't think like that. Weekdays are absolute free real estate at the moment. It's crazy.
Exactly. It seems crazy to me that league play doesn't happen on weekdays, but I digress again. That's another topic for another day. We'll just focus back on Rising Stars. Rising Stars is like one of the most accessible tournaments you have, by the way, because it's open sign up and it transcends from an open tournament into a fucking €2,500 league.
And there's multiple divisions.
Multiple divisions within that system, which is kind of what we want to see in general, because that's something we push for in terms of the championship series structure, of having like another step on the ladder, which I think was really needed at this point, considering the fallings and failings of the play-in bracket and the seedings that have proven themselves to be fucking suspect, as we've proven so far in the show. But yeah, Rocket Baguette, they'd have no intention of stopping Rising Stars. So I'm fucking excited to see where it goes from here. And I absolutely support the tournament. It's one of the few tournaments I'm actively looking to get involved in, because I'm I've said it so far on the show. I'm not really unless someone comes to me, I'm not willing to cast a tournament anymore. So it's just, this is one of the only ones where that's an exception. Yeah, Rocket Baguette Rising Stars, fucking PogChamp. Make sure you watch it. It starts very, very soon, so keep your eyes on all those details. I think it's at Rising Stars RL on Twitter, if you want to keep up with all the news. Second question from Freecant. What team in EU has the most personality? Tough one here, Bacon. Real fucking tough one. Because I think that a lot of teams have a lot of personality here.
For me, I'm going to say, actually, it's probably pretty easy, but I think Triple Trouble at the moment. I'm saying of established teams, I reckon that's got to be it right up at the top.
I don't know, man. I was thinking closer to the championship series Rebels. I was thinking closer to maybe Reciprocity or Mouse Sports, because they've got like Fruity and Scrub Killer in there as like the main streamers, and those guys are fucking entertaining as shit. Scrub Killer especially, with how... Mouse. Yeah, Speed as well on Mouse Sports. Like, Mouse Sports are a good shout, I think, with those two guys being streamers.
Kirk leaves it out. He does bugger all. I think he just sleeps, and then whenever he's awake, it's just Rocket League, and then goes back to sleep. That is it for him.
I mean, for FC Barcelona, another good shout, in my opinion, because Flake streams and Ronicky and Devo. Ronicky is so fucking funny. If you've ever heard him, the What Talk Show, I know how everyone fucking hates that because of the whole Gucci shoes joke, but if you watch the shit that he said about me and you, there was that one joke he made where he was like, I want to see Bacon and Jay casting the fucking championship series while Squid was in the call. Completely ignored him.
I didn't realize. I don't think he means to be funny. Just he's naturally he doesn't contain himself, and the stuff that just comes out is hilarious. But whether that's for good or bad,
Apparently, Ronicky started streaming more as well, so there's another thing as well. There's quite a lot of personality.
I think that's part of FCB though. I'm surprised Devo hasn't been pushed to stream more.
I think I don't know. I haven't spoken to Devo. I don't really know much about what he about what he can do in terms of being an entertainer, but I digress anyway. Triple Trouble are a decent shout, but I feel like with the new Reformation, I'm not sure how well that will blend in, because I haven't seen much content for Rix. I haven't seen much content from Bluey. Versus all the guys in RLCS, which seem to be fucking pumping shit out.
Monaco. With what they just power content
Monaco as well, yeah, they've got awesome. A lot of great content and everything. There was that one where Ignite was cooking shit, which we left out of the mailbag for this week because there ain't no fucking way I'm watching that. I got too much shit on my plate. I can't be asked. It's great for the casual audience, but I've got work in about an hour, so I'm not going to take the time out to watch that. Anyway, yeah. So. I'm going to lean to Mouse Sports on this one for my answer. I think that Mouse Sports have a lot of personality. The guys there are fun. They stream a lot, and they're good streamers as well. Speed is very candid, so I've got to respect that. Scrub Killer is also a bit toxically candid, but again, I've got to respect that as well. Being a Scotsman, you've got to get the fucks in, but whatever. The
Looking at Barcelona, the same can be said for Flake, so he is just an absolute asshole, but people love that for some reason.
Yeah, but Scrub Killer is straight rage and Flakes is just straight BM, and I like the straight rage thing a bit more. So there you go.
And then just as I don't want to say like a wildcard aspect, but Vitality is a lot of stuff coming out from KDOP, of course. Alpha's pretty quiet and Fairy Peak comes out with a little bit, but where a lot of that stuff is in French, I'm just going to give that as the caveat just out there because I don't really understand done quite a lot of that. K-Dop's little English stream they did like a week or two back was quite cool. That was nice. And like you said, reciprocity, Ferra and Chaucer's pretty quiet. Ferra talks a little bit more than Chaucer, but Fruity is holding that team up. We just need more like pros to just be outspoken and trying to actually get stuff going. That's the problem.
Yeah,
I'm hoping for good stuff from Endpoint this season because they're going to get that little bit more fame coming up, and Endpoint I reckon will be trying to push those players to talk and speak up.
Well, there you go. That's our mailbag done, and by extension, that is our show. Do you know what? Considering there were no results this week, Bacon, we did a really good job at padding time. Like, we really...
No, again, the fans saved the show. That should be the real, like... Yes, the title is called Everything Burns, but really, the fans saved the show is the unofficial, official title of it.
Yes, thank you to you, the fans, for sending us so much shit to talk about. Thank you to the Rocket League community for deciding to have like all the news announcements happen on the weekend when nothing happened. So, you know, big thanks to you guys, big thanks to everybody, and of course to the community and the fans and everything. So, you know, make sure you get involved in all that shit. You know, it's awesome. It's awesome to see the continuing growth and support of Aftershock. We've got some exciting shit coming up as well, especially Aftershock related. For those of you who may have been following my Twitter, you may have been noticing that I've been tweeting about this SSP stuff. You know, this SSP1, SSP2 things. SSP2 is Aftershock related, and I'll give you a little bit of a peek behind the curtain. That's what we're referring to externally. Internally, though, it's about 85% of the way through. And I can't wait to announce it because it's going to fucking, like, you know, just take this whole thing to the next level. It's something I've wanted to do for a really long time. And although on the surface it might not seem like much, the philosophy of which we're going to do it is wholly Aftershock. It is all Aftershock in the way we want to do things in this particular project. So you want to keep your eye on the Twitter at RLAftershock for more news about SSP2 when it does get announced. If you want to get more discussion of that going on, you can do so in the Discord. Again, !Discord in the Twitch chat to find the discussion platforms, the community forums, if you want to say, for the European scene, for us and for the podcast as a whole. The mailbag questions are there, of course, if you want to ask one for next week's show. We've also got the pick and prediction game that's going down for next week when the RLCS actually does start. Obviously, you can still make your picks for week one since those haven't happened yet. I think Dex is still sort of extending that deadline, but that's all there as well. Get involved if you want to go ahead and play some fun games. Didn't get any prizes sorted out this season, unfortunately. Just a little bit too strapped for cash at the moment, but we'll try to see if we can get that sorted out for next season.
I know, we might try and get a little bit of something like in-game items sorted out by the end, but nothing cement yet, because I'd probably have to go look through my inventory anyway.
We'll work that out. We'll work on it. Anyways, so podcast is available on Twitch, twitch.tv/RLAftershock, or you can carry it on the go through the video versions and audio versions on YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcasts, TuneIn, and that's 7 other audio distribution platforms. You can go to anchor.fm/RLAftershock to find your favorite platform, request your favorite way to listen. And we'll be back next week with even more of the EU action, hopefully with a bit more RLCS results. Of course, you know, server SQL pending, but we'll find out whether or not that actually is a thing later on down the road. Bacon, thank you for joining me. I didn't think, honestly, we'd be able to get this whole thing off the road. And again, thank you to the fans for giving us the content to fucking, you know, make this show happen. So, yeah, if you want to be part of that fandom, make sure you join the fandom, the Discord. As usual, you know where all that stuff is. Bacon, any final words before we head off for another week?
No, just next week we've got the Belong Arena Clash starting up again, Jay, and that's going to be pretty awesome. Can't wait to get in that. Why are you saying fuck me?
No,
just a little hint reminder. Go back, watch last week's show. If you want a hint of what that is, what he's scared about, just right there. No. But yeah, we got that starting up next week. I'm excited for it, and I can't wait because, of course, again, it's a British league play. The one exciting thing for me is the new London side. Don't know why I didn't get that to hand, ready to go, but Musty, Crisis, and I can't remember the third player, and that's going to really annoy. Boy School Q have signed up. So Glasgow have got a massive competition this season because unfortunately we lost the Milton Keynes side, but we've gained a new, stronger team, which is actually a very epic one for London. So that's cool.
Wouldn't it be a great three-way
and it's
race,
actually
though?
Your Spartans, Jay. You actually have a good Spartan side.
I know.
You can be proud to wear the jersey.
Doesn't it feel good? It's great. Awesome. Anyways. So that's all the action going on. Hopefully next week we'll have some results and more news for you to cover, but that will all come back next week on Monday or Wednesday because Tuesday is going to be the Belong Arena stuff. So it won't be on Tuesdays anymore from here on out. Sorry, guys. But that all information will come to you as it does come to you. For now, though, we're going to get off your screens, out of your ears, and we'll return you to another streamer for even more Rocket League action. We'll see you back here next week for even more of the Aftershock.